Why do we carve pumpkins, wear spooky costumes, and go door-to-door asking for candy on October 31st? The story of Halloween is far more ancient and mysterious than you might think. Let's peel back the layers and uncover the ghostly origins of our favorite spooky holiday. Our journey begins over 2,000 years ago with the ancient Celts, who celebrated a festival called Samhain. They believed that on the night of October 31st, the veil between the living and the spirit world was at its thinnest. Ghosts of the dead were thought to return to Earth, causing trouble and damaging crops. To ward off these wandering spirits, the Celts would light massive bonfires and wear costumes, often consisting of animal heads and skins, to disguise themselves and blend in with the otherworldly visitors. They would also leave out food and drink to appease the spirits, a practice that some historians believe is the ancient root of our modern trick-or-treating. Fast forward a few centuries. As Christianity spread, the church sought to replace pagan festivals with its own holidays. Pope Gregory III designated November 1st as All Saints' Day, a time to honor saints and martyrs. The evening before, October 31st, became known as All Hallows Eve, which later shortened to Halloween. But the old traditions didn't just disappear, they merged and evolved. In Ireland and Scotland, people began carving scary faces into turnips and potatoes to frighten away wandering spirits. When Irish immigrants brought these traditions to America, they discovered a new, perfect canvas for their carvings, the pumpkin. And so, the jack-o'-lantern was born. The trick-or-treat, we know, today really took off in America in the early 20th century. Communities wanted to create a more family-friendly way to celebrate, shifting the focus from pranks to organized fun. Instead of threatening tricks, children would politely ask for a treat, and neighbors would happily oblige with sweets and candy. So, this year, when you're putting on your costume or carving your pumpkin, remember you're taking part in traditions that stretch back thousands of years. From ancient Celtic bonfires to the modern candy craze, Halloween is a fascinating blend of history, folklore, and fun. It's a night where we can all embrace a little bit of spookiness and connect with a past that still haunts us today. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this journey through Halloween's history, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more spooky stories. Happy Halloween! Ever wonder why we carve pumpkins, wear spooky costumes, and go door-to-door demanding candy on October 31st? The story of Halloween is far more ancient and mysterious than you might think. Let's travel back in time over 2,000 years to the Celtic festival of Samhain. The Celts, who lived in what is now Ireland, the UK, and northern France, celebrated their new year on November 1st. This day marked the end of summer and the harvest and the beginning of the dark, cold winter, a time of year that was often associated with death. They believed that on the night before the new year, the boundary between the worlds of the living and the dead became blurred. On the night of October 31st, they celebrated Samhain when it was believed that the ghosts of the dead returned to Earth. To ward off these ghostly visitors, people would light massive bonfires and wear costumes, typically consisting of animal heads and skins, to disguise themselves from the spirits. They would also leave out food and wine on their doorsteps to appease the wandering souls. It was a night of both fear and feasting, a way to confront the darkness of winter. So, how did this ancient pagan festival become the Halloween we know and love today? When the Roman Empire conquered Celtic territory, they combined two of their own festivals with Samhain. Then came the influence of Christianity. In the 8th century, Pope Gregory III designated November 1st as a time to honor all saints, calling it All Saints' Day. The evening before, which was the traditional night of Samhain, began to be called All Hallows Eve, and eventually Halloween. The traditions continued to evolve. The practice of souling where the poor would go door to door on All Souls' Day begging for soul cakes in return for prayers for the dead, is seen as a precursor to modern trick-or-treating. When Irish and Scottish immigrants brought these customs to America in the 19th century, they began to merge with American traditions. People started dressing up in costumes and going from house to house asking for food or money, a practice that eventually became today's trick-or-treat. And what about the jack-o'-lantern? That tradition comes from an Irish myth about a man named Stingy Jack who tricked the devil. As punishment, he was doomed to roam the earth forever with only a burning coal inside a carved-out turnip to light his way. Immigrants in America found that pumpkins, native to the continent, were much easier to carve. And the iconic jack-o'-lantern was born. From ancient bonfires and ghostly encounters to candy corn and superhero costumes, Halloween has transformed dramatically. But at its heart, it remains a night to playfully confront our fears, connect with our communities, and enjoy a little bit of magic. Thanks for watching! If you enjoyed this spooky trip through history, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories behind our favorite traditions. Happy Halloween! Ever wonder why we carve pumpkins, wear spooky costumes, and go door-to-door asking for candy on Halloween? Well, the story is much older and stranger than you might think. Let's travel back in time over 2,000 years to the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain. The Celts, who lived in what is now Ireland and the surrounding regions, celebrated their new year on November 1st, the night before October 31st was Samhain. They believed this was a magical time when the boundary between the world of the living and the world of the dead became blurry. Ghosts of the departed were thought to return to Earth, which was both exciting and a little terrifying. To welcome friendly spirits, they'd set places at the dinner table. But to ward off the mischievous or evil ones, they'd wear costumes and masks made from animal heads and skins. The idea was to disguise themselves as fellow spirits to avoid being bothered. They also lit huge bonfires on hilltops to honor the sun god and guide the good spirits home. It was a night of prophecy, games, and a deep connection to the spirit world. So, how did we get from ancient bonfires to bags full of candy? As centuries passed, different cultures and traditions blended together. When Christianity spread, the church established All Saints' Day on November 1st, also known as All Hallows' Day. The evening before became All Hallows' Eve, which, you guessed it, eventually shortened to Halloween. The traditions of dressing up and going door-to-door evolved too. In medieval times, people practiced souling, where the poor would go to wealthier homes and pray for their dead relatives in exchange for soul cakes. This is considered a precursor to our modern trick-or-treating. When Irish and Scottish immigrants came to America, they brought these customs with them. Over time, tricks or pranks became part of the fun, and offering treats was a way to prevent them, and the jack-o'-lantern. That comes from an Irish myth about a man named Stingy Jack. He was a clever guy who tricked the devil. When Jack died, he wasn't allowed into heaven or hell, so he was doomed to roam the earth with only a burning coal inside a hollowed-out turnip to light his way. The Irish originally carved scary faces into turnips and potatoes to frighten away Jack and other wandering spirits. When the tradition came to America, they discovered that pumpkins were much bigger and easier to carve. So this year, when you're putting on your costume or carving your pumpkin, remember you're taking part in a tradition that's thousands of years old, connecting us to ancient rituals, ghostly legends, and the simple joy of a spooky night. Thanks for watching! If you enjoyed this trip through Halloween history, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more fascinating stories. Happy Halloween! Ever wonder why we carve spooky faces into pumpkins or dress up as ghouls and ghosts every October 31st? The story of Halloween is far more ancient and mysterious than you might think. It's a tale that travels back over 2,000 years, to a time of Celtic festivals and ghostly beliefs. Our modern Halloween extravaganza actually began as an ancient Celtic festival called Samhain. The Celts, who lived in the area that is now Ireland, the UK, and northern France, celebrated their new year on November 1st. This day marked the end of summer and the harvest and the beginning of the dark, cold winter, a time of year that was often associated with human death. Celts believed that on the night before the new year, the boundary between the worlds of the living and the dead became blurred. They celebrated Samhain on October 31st, when it was believed that the ghosts of the dead returned to Earth. So, how did this ancient festival turn into the candy-filled holiday we know today? Well, the Celts would light bonfires and wear costumes, typically consisting of animal heads and skins, to ward off these wandering spirits. They believed that by disguising themselves, they could fool the ghosts into thinking they were one of them and be left alone. Fast forward a few centuries, and these traditions started to merge with other cultural practices. The practice of trick-or-treating has its roots in medieval Britain and Ireland. People would go souling, where they go from door to door asking for small breads called soul cakes in exchange for a promise to pray for the family's dead relatives. Later, young people would go guising, dressing up and performing a little song or trick in exchange for a treat like food or money. And what about the costumes? Dressing up as witches, ghosts, and goblins became popular in America in the early 20th century. It was a way for communities to celebrate together, turning the once feared Night of Spirits into a fun, neighborly event. From ancient bonfires to modern-day block parties, Halloween has always been a way for us to confront the darkness with a little bit of light and a lot of fun. So next time you put on your costume or carve a pumpkin, remember you're taking part in a tradition that's thousands of years old. A spooky, silly, and sweet evolution of a truly ghostly past. Thanks for watching! If you enjoyed this spooky dive into history, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more.